Hi folks, welcome to episode 19 of my 59th minute FPL podcast. I'm recording on Tuesday the 6th of November, so Gameweek 11 is behind us and we're looking ahead now to Gameweek 12 and yet another international break then. So there seems to be more international breaks than ever this season, never fun as an FPL manager. So hopefully green arrows in Gameweek 12 going into an international break. If you're listening to the podcast for the first time, you can follow me on Twitter at FPL General. Same format as usual this week. Start off with the shoutouts, move into a Game Week 11 review. I'll update my watch list then, take a few questions from Twitter, and finish off with Game Week 12 Captaincy, and I'll talk a little bit about my transfer plans as well. So, shoutouts first of all. All players in the Premier League in Game Week 11 managed to avoid the dreaded 59th minute substitution. So just a couple of notable mentions this week. Two defenders who went off injured and missed out on clean sheets. Lascelles for Newcastle and Harry Maguire at Leicester. So frustrating for owners who own both of those guys. And a notable mention as well for Heung-min Son. He came off the bench for Spurs for the injured Dembele after 5 or 6 minutes and was taken off before the 60-minute mark. So a very odd substitution from Pochettino, bringing Son on and then taking him off again. So I just thought he deserved a shout out this week. So still waiting for Pascal Gross to return from injury to get that hat-trick. Game Week 11 went okay for me, 64 points. It was a small green arrow. I went from 289k to 269k, so went up about 20,000 places, so never going to complain about a green arrow. It did feel though that there was more points to be had, especially as a non-Richarlison owner. That one stung quite a bit, and obviously Sterling did the business for his owners as well. So I'm sitting on 657 points, and I did two free transfers going into Game Week 11, so I did Bennett to Balbuena and I did Knockaert to Barkley. So as often has happened this season, my transfers haven't really worked out. At least they haven't worked out in the first week. The plan is probably to bank a transfer this week and then do some surgery during the break, but I'll talk more about that later in the podcast. So Barkley was a punt. I mentioned it last week on the podcast that I felt he was worth a punt, a short-term punt at his price. The worrying thing was watching the Chelsea game at the weekend. He was very, very quiet and he was taken off, I think, after about 63 minutes. So very disappointing display from Barkley, and that has me worried now for the weekend. I'm worried that he'll be back on the bench and Kovacic will come back in. So maybe the Europa League lineup on Thursday will give me a clue as to whether Barkley's going to start or not at the weekend. So if Barkley does play Europa League, I might just bench him this week and play Balbuena instead. So I'll be keeping a close eye on the Chelsea lineup on Thursday night. What went well for me Game Week 11? I got the captaincy right with Aguero. Arnautovic finally came good after weeks of not showing up and getting 1 point. So it was good to see him get some points on the board, and I do feel he's going to be he's very important for the next few weeks. I think anyone who doesn't have him will probably be looking to bring him in. Two frustrating things, Game Week 11. I actually watched Match of the Day Saturday night, and the only game I didn't know anything about was the Tottenham Wolves game. So anyone who watches Match of the Day live, if you want clean sheets, so I had Patricio and Trippier. So really I want the Spurs Wolves game to be towards the end of Match of the Day, because then I know it's going to be, there's a good chance of a 0-0. But it was on kind of midway through, so I knew I was unlikely to get 2 clean sheets. But I was watching it, and Spurs were 3-0 up. Trippier had his assist. It looked like he was on for a 12-pointer. He's probably going to get bonus points as well. So it was very frustrating then to see Wolves score the goals, and Trippier was actually at fault for both goals, and he was at fault for the Man City goal last week as well. So the last 3 Spurs goals that they've conceded, Trippier's actually been at fault. So he's effectively wiped out his own clean sheets, which has been very frustrating. But I'm probably going to keep him for Palace, and then likely to move him for Mendy after the Manchester derby. So Trippier was frustrating. Danny Ings as well. So I went into game week 11 without any City defenders. So I was hoping for the clean sheet wipeout, and Danny Ings wiped it out. But he was my first sub, and probably for the first week in 5 or 6 weeks, none of my subs came in because everyone played. So Ings was my first sub, but it was good to see him scoring because I'm quietly confident of him coming good now. I'm going to keep him probably for his next 2 fixtures. He had 5 shots in the box against City, so he posted some very impressive stats in that game, even though Saints got beat 6-1. So Ings is a hold for me now. Moving on now to my watch list. So I've updated my watch list, having watched all the highlights and watched a couple of games back. So I've got 5 players this week I've added and 3 that I've removed. So I'm just going to give a few reasons why. The first player that caught my eye this weekend was Dianjana, the 4.5 million West Ham midfielder. Got an assist, passed the eye test, should have had a penalty, which was turned down. And looking at the stats as well today, he created 5 chances in that game. So Dianjana could well be the best budget midfielder now. I've liked Camarasa this season, but I think it's between him and Dianjana now for the 5th midfield spot. So he's on my watch list. Another player in the West Ham game who was phenomenal was Felipe Anderson. Been very impressed with him this season. He seems to be really finding his feet now. He looks a bit fitter. Seems to be getting up to speed with the Premier League. 6.8 million. Scored 2 goals at the weekend. Could have had more. I think he had 4 shots in the box. And right at the end of the game, he had an audacious volley from the edge of the box from a corner. So he's a classy player, and he looks like a really good option. I think he's only about 3% owned in FPL. So as a differential, he's definitely someone worth considering. And we know West Ham have good fixtures. So that's the 2 West Ham guys I've added this week. The thing about Felipe Anderson, I've got Arnautovic, so the double up, it doesn't really appeal to me at the moment. I'm probably just happy to keep Arnautovic. I've got Balbuena as well, so if I was to go for Felipe, it would be a triple up in West Ham, and that just doesn't sound good to me. But anyone who maybe doesn't have Arnautovic, Felipe Anderson is worth considering. Another player who was impressive game week 11 was Jimenez, the Wolves striker, 5.7 million. He was popular earlier in the season. He's offering very good value. Got a goal, got an assist, and he had a goal chalked off for offside as well, which shouldn't have been chalked off, and that would have been a Doherty assist as well. So Jimenez is one. He's back on my watch list now, having been gone from it for a few weeks. If I was to move away from Ings at some point, Jimenez is a viable alternative. A lot of people are probably looking to get rid of Mitrovic this week. I think Jimenez is a good place to go, alongside Callum Wilson as well. So there is options there for Mitrovic owners. You know, you can go Jimenez, you could go Ings, you can go Wilson, or you can drop down to someone like Success. So Jimenez scored a penalty as well. So Neves took the first one, and Jimenez took the second one. So we don't really know what the story is with the Wolves penalty takers. Did Jimenez not take the first one because he was fouled? You know, did he take the second one to keep the goalkeeper guessing because Neves had took the first one? So it's really hard to know. You know, it could be Neves first choice, it could be Jimenez. We still don't know. It could be some kind of rotation, and there may be other players involved in that rotation as well. So we probably need more a bigger sample size to make a judgment on that. But penalties aside, Jimenez is a great option. The thing about the interesting stat that came out of the weekend for Neves was in taking that penalty, it was his first penalty area touch of the season, which is just crazy after 12 game weeks. So he hasn't been in the opposition team's box until game week 12. So that says all you need to know about Neves. He's a player he's an excellent footballer, but he plays quite deep and he shoots from distance. So I'm not really expecting much FPL wise from Neves apart from penalties if he's on them. Bournemouth were very impressive again against United. I didn't see the whole game, I just seen the highlights. One player who stood out was David Brooks again. He's gone under the radar this season. He's he's a brilliant talent. He kind of came out of nowhere, really. I think he came from Sheffield United. But 5 goal attempts against United at the weekend. He was playing pretty advanced, almost as a striker, going by what people were saying on Twitter. So he's a great option, an alternative to Fraser. Bournemouth do have, a mixed bag of fixtures, but Bournemouth are a team I feel who have stepped it up a level this season, and I would have no problem, bringing in the likes of Wilson, Fraser, and even Brooks, even with the tougher fixtures. I think they can score goals against anyone. So Brooks is back on my watch list. I had removed him a few weeks ago because he was getting taken off before 60 minutes quite often, but he is looking good. I know Josh King was injured, so when he comes back, it could influence Brooks' game time, because Stanislas is starting to see some game time as well. But Brooks is definitely one I'm going to keep an eye on. The 5th and final player I've added to my watch list this week is Morata, Chelsea. 4-4, and very little people talking about him on social media. 8.7 million. I guess the thing about Morata is a lot of us have Hazard and Alonso. I've already got a triple up because I've got Barkley, so I can't really get to Morata easily. He is worth considering, but I probably want to see more consistency first. It was interesting after the game, Sarri in his interview said that Morata is mentally fragile, so it's not really what you want to hear about a potential FPL asset, that he's mentally fragile. To me, that just tells me, any given game week when Morata. So he's one for the watch list, but I wouldn't be in a rush to get him. I just want to see more starts and more consistency before I go there. But a couple of weeks down the line, he could be very good value. Less than 9 million, playing as the Chelsea striker. Moving on now to a couple of players I've removed from the watch list this week. 3 players. The first one is Pogba. The reason I've removed Pogba is because Martial is the United attacker that I would go for if I was to do that. So Martial is going to be in my thoughts during the international break when I do my surgery. The more I save him, the more he looks like the real deal. He's starting to realise his potential now, playing every week and scoring goals. So what more do you want really from an FPL asset? And he's a nice price. I think he's around 7.5 million roughly. I remember a couple of seasons ago I think he was 9.5 million. So Martial definitely one I'm going to keep an eye on, and I just prefer him over Pogba at the moment. Another player I've removed from the watch list this week is Mahrez. He didn't play at the weekend, and I just don't like that about Mahrez. I don't like the fact that when he doesn't play, he could get 10 minutes and get a 1-pointer. So, yes, he can be explosive, but I much prefer someone like David Silva. With David Silva, it seems like he plays or he doesn't play. He doesn't really get the cameo appearances off the bench, so you can get your sub in then. And watching the City game at the weekend again, David Silva was involved in almost everything that they do going forward. 8.5 million. His price is a lot more affordable than Sterling. So at the moment, if I was to choose a Man City midfielder this week, it would be David Silva. Sterling is obviously the talk of the town this week, but I'm quite happy to hold on to Aguero. So it's pretty difficult for me to get to Sterling, but I'm happy to hold off. Number one, because it's the Manchester derby, and Sterling doesn't. I don't think Sterling has a great record in bigger games like that. And also, after the last international break, Sterling got a rest, so that could well happen again. Game week 13. Not to scare people off Sterling, but I think with Sterling and any Man City player, you don't really let the rotation fears put you off them anyway. You just get them in and you stick with them. We've seen that this week with the people who got Sterling in. I think it was game week 9 he was rested. So the people who got him in and then he was rested, a lot of people got rid of him, but the people who stuck with him, they got their rewards this week with his big points haul. So well done to those who remain patient with Sterling. And one other change I've made to my watch list this week is I've switched Duffy for Dunk, just because he's 0.2 cheaper. And I'm unlikely to go for a Brighton defender anyway, but if I was, I would probably just go for Dunk just for the cash saving there. I don't think there's too much between those two in an attacking sense. So with my watch list, with a player like that, I have Dunk on my watch list now, but that doesn't mean I wouldn't consider Duffy when the time comes. If I see Dunk on my watch list, I'm thinking to myself, right, what other players are in the Brighton defence? So I'd like to keep the watch list at 30 players. Just a bit of OCD, so that's why I don't put Dunk and Duffy on the watch list, but Dunk is there now and Duffy is gone. I've picked out 4 or 5 questions from Twitter just to cover a couple of different topics. They should hit on some of the main talking points this week. So the first one is from John Chappell. He was asking just a simple question: who are the best rotating goalkeepers for the next few weeks? So I still think you can't go wrong with Patricio and Fabianski. I had a quick look today again. Those two rotate really well right up into January. So, a lot of people probably have one or the other at the moment. And if you're looking to move to a rotation strategy, I think Patricio and Fabianski is probably the way to go. The second question was from Peter Gray. Peter's asking, with Sterling looking a viable option now, does Salah to Mane have to be considered after the Fulham fixture? So good question. It's actually a question I'm asking myself, going into the international break. So as I mentioned, I'm not going to make any moves this week unless there was some unforeseen injuries or something during the week. But Sterling is obviously, I think we all need to think about getting Sterling if we don't have him. It's how you can get to him is the big question. I've mentioned I'm quite happy to hold on to Aguero, so I'm happy to wait on Sterling, for another couple of weeks. But for people who do want to get him, and if you own Salah, you have to ask yourself, can Mane match Salah? So if you go Salah to Mane, you've got 3 million to play with. That's a lot of money. So that's something I'm thinking about. And I'll talk about it a little bit later when it comes to my transfer plans. But the answer to the question, Peter, is yes. I do think we need to consider Salah to Mane after the Fulham game if we want to free up funds for a move to someone like Sterling. Or in my case, I just want to improve my squad overall. I've got a couple of areas I'd like to upgrade, and to do those upgrades, I see the Salah to Mane move as the best way to unlock funds. But definitely, don't sell Salah before Fulham. For those that can get a Mane Salah double up for Fulham, I think you should really that should be considered. I can't get to that easily. I don't want to sell Hazard. I don't want to sell Aguero. So it's not for me this week. But I do think we seen it last week or 2 weeks ago, where both players, I think they scored 15 points each, and that could easily happen again against Fulham. Watched the Huddersfield Fulham game last night. Well, I say watched it. I had it on in the background. I couldn't really find it in myself to watch 90 minutes of it. But from the bits I've seen, Fulham are just awful. And that could be anything from, 4-0 to 10-0 this weekend. So Salah and Mane double up does sound good to me for the weekend. And yes, I will be considering Salah to Mane during the break. The next question was kind of linked to that one from FPL Nick. Quite simply, Aguero or Sterling? ? So for me, I'm happy to keep Aguero. It was good to see him get 90 minutes. So hopefully maybe whatever issue he's been having, I think it was a heel injury or something he'd been carrying. So hopefully that might be behind him now, and we might see him playing more 90 minutes. Sterling obviously is an excellent option. Owning both might be the way to go. I've seen a couple of people, posting massive scores this week who owned both Sterling and Aguero. That is something I could look at during the international break. I could do Salah to Sterling and keep Aguero, but the problem with that is I would have no Liverpool attacker, which I don't like. So that's probably why I won't do that move. But I do definitely think a Sterling Aguero double up could be the way to go. Best team in the league, scoring the most goals, so why not if you can afford it. But for me, for the moment, the answer to the next question is Aguero. I'm going to keep Aguero. and avoid Sterling for the time being. Next question came in from FPL Heskibo. Who are the best strikers priced at 7 million and under, apart from Arnautovic? So we're assuming Arnautovic is the best option. A lot of us are going to own him. If we didn't own, people who didn't own him this week are probably going to own him from next week onwards. So I've mentioned the strikers earlier, and I've ranked them here from 1 to 4. So obviously Arnautovic is number 1. I would put Callum Wilson number 2, even though he's caused me so much pain. Number 3, I would put Jimenez, and then number 4 would be Danny Ings, and number 5 would be Success. People might wonder why I haven't included Glenn Murray there. I just don't feel it with Glenn Murray. Yes, he had a great first 10 game weeks, but I just don't really see him sustaining his form. And I prefer the options that I've mentioned there. I even prefer Success, and investing elsewhere in the team than Glenn Murray. But I mean, that could come back. I might have to eat my words on that one, but I'm just not feeling the love for Glenn Murray. Game week 12. Actually, before I get to captaincy, there was one more question. I think it was from FPL Heskibo as well. A follow-up to his budget striker question was, would I consider going without a premium striker and stack the midfield instead? So for me, that would mean getting rid of Aguero and going with 3 budget strikers, and then you could go the likes of Salah, Mane, maybe even Sterling and Hazard in midfield as well, depending on budget. So I do think it is a strategy worth considering. It's something I'm probably not going to do for the moment. But I mean, we've seen it in recent weeks. There's managers out there who are going with 3 budget strikers and who are doing very well. I'll pick out one of them, Mark Southerns from Fantasy Football Scout. So he's been rolling with 3 budget strikers for the last 3 weeks. I think he has Jimenez, Wilson, and who's the third one he had? Arnautovic, I think. So over the last 2 game weeks, Mark Southerns has gone from 145k to 12k with 3 budget strikers. So, it just shows you it is a viable option. I think Mark scored 109 points this week with Sterling captain. So again, that just shows you how quickly things can change in FPL. You can go from 145k to 12k in 2 weeks if you smash it. So that's that gives me hope as well in my situation that all it takes is to put a couple of 2 or 3 game weeks together, and you can really fly over a short time. So it's patience is key, and just keep making the right decisions, and your luck can turn like it has for Mark. So that's the questions covered. I had a look at the captaincy poll on Fantasy Football Scout before I started recording. There wasn't too many votes. I think it was probably only created today, but Salah was at 52%, Mane was at 19%, and Hazard was at 7%. So really it's between those 3 this week. I think anyone who owns Salah has to go Salah. If you don't have Salah, it's between Mane and Hazard then, which is not an easy decision. Going by how poor Fulham are, I think I would just edge towards Mane over Hazard this week for that fixture. Hazard has had his injury problems, and we don't know if he's fully over them yet. So Mane would probably get my vote there. Aguero and Sterling didn't have many votes today. Probably because it's the Manchester derby, and anything can happen in that one. Josie could shut City out. So I wouldn't really feel comfortable captaining Aguero or Sterling in that fixture. I think there's better options this week. It's going to be Salah for me. A nice easy one this week. Don't have to really think about it. So moving on now to my transfer plans. So I'm planning to bank a transfer this week, so I have 2 for the international break. And I haven't taken any points hits this season, but I'm pretty sure I will be taking at least 1, maybe even 2 during the international break. I just feel my squad needs a shake-up. I need to get my season back on track. And I feel like with transfers recently, I've kind of been just patching up problems. But now I feel like it's time to, do the surgery that's required and get myself into a position that I'm happy with, and get myself a team that I'm happy with for the long term. So as I mentioned, to do that, what I'm looking at is Salah to Mane after the Fulham game. So that gives me 3 million to perform some surgery. Every time I watch Liverpool this season, I just feel that on the eye test, I just feel that Mane is just as likely to deliver as Salah is. So I'm not really afraid of making that move. And I can't really say for sure now, but I am probably pretty set on doing it at this point during the international break. I just like what it does for the rest of my squad. I can get a far stronger squad for the next few weeks and for the festive period. So what I'd be thinking then alongside the Salah to Mane move would be Trippier to Mendy is probably another nailed on transfer that I'll make. And the other options then would be Richarlison I really want, and Doherty I really want as well, game week 13 onwards. So I want to get those two guys in game week 13. So Richarlison will come in for more than likely Barkley, but it could be for Maddison as well. If Maddison blanks against Burnley, I'd probably sell him. And if I was selling Maddison, Barkley really needs to perform a miracle against Everton to survive this cull as well. So if I was to sell Barkley and Maddison, I could get in, Richarlison and maybe look at someone like David Silva or Martial. So that's where I'm kind of thinking. And then Doherty could come in defence for Balbuena, but I haven't ruled out, going without Doherty reluctantly and just keeping Balbuena. So Danny Ings is probably going to survive the cull during the international break, but that's where I'm at the moment. And it's early days. I've basically got 3 weeks to think about this surgery. See how game week 12 goes first of all. That can change things. There could be injuries and things like that, so that could change my plans. But that's just an insight into how I'm thinking at the moment. Probably a -4 or a -8 during the international break, and then I'll have a team I'm happy with, and hopefully we can start building momentum then with that team. So before I go, I want to just give a quick thank you to Jay Eggersdorf and Stu Smith for the tweets on Friday night about my Patreon, urging people to check it out. Those 2 tweets got me about 35 new patrons over the weekend, so very much appreciated, Jay and Stu. Anyone who wants to find out more about my Patreon offering, it's pinned on my Twitter page at FPL General, or you can go to patreon.com/FPL General. The start of a month is the best time to sign up because basically you get a free trial and you can opt out anytime before December 1st without getting charged. So just check out my Twitter page for a link to that. I'm in London this week for the FPL show, so catch me on that on Thursday night or Friday morning. You'll see it online. Good luck in game week 12. I'm not sure when the next podcast will be because it's an international break. I know the last international break I kind of just switched off for 2 weeks and I didn't do a podcast, but I probably will do one this time, but it will be probably in the second week of the international break. So just keep an eye on Twitter and I'll keep you updated on that one. So hope you enjoyed this one. A little bit shorter, I think, than usual. So hopefully that suits you as well. As I said, good luck game week 12. Enjoy the rest of your week and enjoy the international break if you can. Just try and survive it and switch off from FPL. So talk to you all soon, folks. Have a good week.